Richard Olofsson from Exquisite Press, this sounds right, just gave me some free copies of the Canadian Poetry Review. There's a few of them over here. If any of you are interested, you're welcome to pick those up too. Okay, and now, by the way, welcome also people in Zoom land here. My head is not cut off, that's good. I think neither Laurence nor Nick are much taller than me, certainly taller, but not that much. There's enough space here, so I can ask you up here in a bit. Let me first introduce you. Oh, and also I think now as the last people are coming up, the escalator will be turned off again. Anyway, so Laurence Hutchman grew up in Toronto. He received his PhD from the Université de Montreal and was an English literature professor at the Université de Moncton for 23 years. Hutchman has published 13 books of poetry, co-edited the anthology Coastlines, the poetry of Atlantic Canada, and edited 2 volumes of In the Writer's Words. Today he has especially 2 books on sale here. It's The House of Shifting Time and the collected poetry Swimming Toward the Sun, from which I think he might read from as well. He can do whatever he wants here now. Laurence, please give us joy with your words.
Thanks, Torsten. Can you hear me all right? Thank you, Planet Earth Poetry, for the invitation to read here. You know, I've read across Canada. I've read in Molly's Coffee House in Fredericton. I read in the Art Bar in Toronto. And I read in Russell Books. And because of the great organization Russell Books, under the auspices of Karen Gear and Nikki, Zoe Dickinson, yeah. As well as the great featured readers and the attentive audience, with my conclusion that Russell Books featuring this series, Planet Earth series, is the best in the country. So it's always a pleasure here. It's great to hear the variety in the open mic series, and as well as what a variety of featured readers. I'm going to read from my book, Swimming Toward the Sun, collected poems, 1968 to 2020. It seems that hard to believe that it's 52 years of work. So the first one I'm going to read from is Reading the Water, and it's a poem called Swimming Toward the Sun. Swimming toward the sun, I could not stay in the cabin. Others slept while I stepped out under the night sky. How cold and damp the air. Before me is the lake. I walk down to the rock. I think of those who died this year. The lake is dark, heavy, cloudy. There's a mist on the lake, curling like grief. I sit on the beach, listen to the frogs in the large pit of the lake, singing in tenor and bass, syncopated in time. Then the loons blowing their mysterious horns to other loons who answer them, and the phoebes who raise their little melodies while large invisible fish splash like timpani. The sounds rise and fall in this pastoral and orchestra in the morning mist. I swim away from the dock. The sun begins to break the horizon. I swim toward it as it sends golden rays across the waves, and 2 loons glide through serenity. They disappear into the light. as I swim through. Got my magic cup of tea here. Okay. Next poem is called Reading the Water, from a collection called Reading the Water. My father claimed to be the best fisherman around. I didn't know if that was another fisherman's lie, but when I watched him, I was inclined to believe him. Reading the Water, I recollect weekend trips, my father following red and yellow lines on maps to obscure places with Aboriginal names. Trips that began on forlorn bridges, rivers that suddenly disappeared into tangled undergrowth, narrow to open fields and high grasses. He had strategies that I could only imagine as he followed the curves of the river, a soldier on a subversive campaign, recalling something, no doubt, mother had said that drove him away from his family to these hedge-lined fields where the water was black and rushing. He stood in the water, hip waders against the current, and waited for the speckled, the brown, the rainbow, moving slowly until he chose the right fly, the appropriate angle. Lassoing the line, he cast it out into an S above the current, tugging at it. Jazzy improvisations, playing the waters with his fingers, reading its bubbles as notes on some aqua score, reading the sounds, the currents, the silences, marks on a rippling dark page. He waited for the change in tension. Timing was all. The tug. He could wait there almost all morning, so it seemed. And I followed him continually onward to catch that fish. We all remember that special Christmas. We got our first pair of skates, Meccano set, mini bricks, the Maple Leaf sweater. It's overtime. Don't tell me to score. It's 4-4. And this Christmas, I got a kaleidoscope. Christmas morning, and I'm 7. I hold the kaleidoscope for the first time. Patterns change as exotic tapestries blossom. Beyond the shores of waking, I travel past blue suns to orange planets, gardens, menageries. I turn the dream glass in my fingers and things turn into one another. Silver dulcimers, red diamonds, sapphire waves. I see myself in the old brick house, relatives, presents, and tangerines. I see the illuminated fir, the winding road, the little church, the river, and the blue gold earth turning. And now for something I've never done before. I wonder what I'm going to do. Okay, I've lived in BC for 3.5 years now, and I'm beginning to feel like it's home. Just the beginning, you know. I love the place. It reminds me of Belfast with the smell of the sea and the mountains in the distance, and the double-decker buses. So in winter, how can you complain about winter? 2 days of snow. Yeah. And people in Victoria still complain about them. Trip to Roe Lake. It's based on a visit to Pender Island. I look for the path that leads to Roe Lake through steep slopes. A small blackbird breaks the silence of the forest. The path moves deeper into the woods with only a patch of blue between trees. It twists across the steep hill's face, only to turn on itself, ending up in a swamp. I'm lost. The only choice I have is to follow the path upward, but it grows narrower. The roots become bizarre, shaped like lizards, reptiles, snakes. I move slowly among them. The path rises and falls into tortuous turns. The ground shifts from time to time, spreading dust. I think of the dangerous times, battling depression, the pain pressed against my chest, the anxious, unsettled air, looking to find the moment of clarity, to find a foothold. Now, lost in the tangled growth, I trust my instinct by moving slowly to reach the wider path down toward the lake. I see a small bridge with a stream. Its water mirror is reflecting tall pines going down over 100 feet toward a clear, deep sky. Is this an illusion? The jagged pines in this underworld are straight as totem poles. Images are allegories, icons in Plato's ideal cave, deepening into the places of the mind. I'm in a trance, and then I regain my balance, crossing the bridge down the pathway toward certainty. And then there's Beacon Hill Park. When I open my curtains in the morning, there's Beacon Hill Park. So it's become a place for me. There's so many different places in Beacon Hill Park to write about. Sitting among the rocks in Beacon Hill Park. Sitting among the rocks, I feel their curved, smooth backs like whales breathed into fire millions of years ago, now frozen into sea forms. As I look closer, I see veins of quartz, the scratches, the screed, the scrawls formed by millennia of weathers. The lines in oblique seem to be in motion, cutting across each other like an action painting. The lichen and moss growing on the surface, blossoming into the shape of anemone or jellyfish, floating on a musical score. The rock becomes a screen with images that fire has worked on. Feel its texture, its solid skin, the graphic touch of writing sparkling on your fingertips. The rock words you read in its writing, the way minerals subtly appear in the moment. Rock, rock me. There you have the rock and roll, this music you hear in the words. Okay, now back to high school, what I call Purgatory High. That's what I saw. I was on Dante and I saw Purgatory High. I thought, that's Emory Collegiate. Yeah, Emory Collegiate, 95. Yeah, at the 50th reunion of my high school, Emory High School, I went upstairs and saw my books in the library vitrine. Then I went downstairs and suddenly it all came back. The failures in French, écoutez, n'écrivez pas. I saw my failures in typing. I thought, how strange to see the distance the years have made. Typing class, sitting down at my electric keyboard, I'm Victor Borg of the piano, or Louis Borges alive in the storm of words. Come, let us compose this morning. Suddenly, I'm back in my grade 9 typing class. Miss Isabel Mendizabal, enchantress of 1,001 high school nights, held my fingers arched high above the unknown keys and suggested, you have fine fingers for the piano. Then gave me the lowest typing mark in the history of Emory. A mad secretarial conductor, she held the cane, decoded the alphabet in its colored combinations of the chemical table of elements in the classroom, where 33 future secretaries punched out these with a precision of a medical formula, ASDF and HJKL and WERP and then UIOP. Using Dr. Seuss combinations, dog sat on the cat, man ran on the moon, the bells in the room gone wild like a music of Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain. I lived for many years in Evanston, New Brunswick, where it's quite mountainous. I used to go for walks deep into the forest. And this is one time this poem arose. The forest is not a forest. In the beginning, I disliked these mountains for keeping the world out. Now, when I walk, I follow the timber-cut roadway, and the path becomes the poem. I see the stories in the stones, poplar, maple, fir, pine, speak of something in the wind. Then the rock suddenly rises into ridges. Step by step, I climb over the deposits, read the scraping of a lost school slate, wave, vein, thrust of fire, and the wind billows through the leaves like sails, jarring me, my mooring from the world, releasing me from prison as if something in me leaps out, a light and abandonment to fuse with this wind, rise on the waves of air like that raven there and survey the landscape from above, veering out over old surveyors, lost lumber camps, old crockery and broken axes, frayed sheets of love letters. And so I would skirt the wind and rise out over the border of the river. I step into the clearing among the rocks, goldenrod and Queen Anne's lace. And in that space, a task challenges me to see the power is in love, to look back and view the obstacles in the road as necessary things to come through. Here is a madness, a holding on to the self, being separate from the world. Pick up that stone rock there and throw it down into dust. Break the self, walk only here as if someone else, as if I were that beach or that raven still riding out there. Give up the separate boundary and learn just to be the feeling, the flight of the raven and the lion of the sea and the rock or the colors slowly suffusing from the season. Learn to uncover these things and step outside the edge of that round rock where the world glimmers dangerously in its fierce purity. Here, lose your name and names, horn, snail, red lanternberries, shadowy, fragrant ferns. Walk now on the path as if the stones were allegories of a life that is not yours, discovered as you go on in this lightness of the falling rain, where the sky touches your forehead and you feel the dreams of the dog. Go ahead, say it isn't so. The forest is not a forest. And my final poem will be, we're always looking for a place. We're always searching for a place. We're going back to the beginning, to the larger element, as if origins could explain the matrix of our being, the source of the stars, the eagle's nest, the nuclei dance. We keep searching for the stories, the intricate rhythms of ancestors' songs, looking beyond the constellations. The myths are being played out until we find the strands of thought, love in the voice of the many-tongued words in the midst of chaos. Try not to forget the place where we grew up, carrying our ancestors' original vision, clarity of their maps within our genes. Encoded now, we grasp.
Thank you very much. Please, one more round of applause for Laurence Hutchman. And I want to say that again. So most of the poems you just heard are in this collection, Swimming Toward the Sun, collected poems 1968 till 2020. The two BC poems, I presume, are not in there. They will be in the follow-up collected poems 2020 to 2072. You gotta wait a little until that comes out, so you better grab this first volume here as soon as possible. And now, last but not least, our second feature reader tonight, Nick Thran. Let me quickly introduce him. Nick Thran's books include the mixed genre collection, If It Gets Quiet Later On, I Will Make a Display, that came out in 2023, and 3 previous collections of poems, Earworm, from 2011 won the 2012 Trillium Book Award for Poetry. His poems have also been anthologized in Best Canadian Poetry and The Next Wave, an anthology of 21st century Canadian poetry. Nick lives on unceded Wallastoqey territory, aka Fredericton, New Brunswick, where he works as an editor and bookseller. And today he brings his book, Existing Music. Nick, please read to us.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Internet. Just going to start things off with a little bell. Arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. 4 instruments and a live trout is 5 instruments. 5 notes, 5 beats. Play them as you please. This first poem is the last poem in the book. It began as a translation from a poem by the Spanish poet named Jose Hierro. It was kind of a poem about time collapsing at the end of a life, memories kind of interweaving with one another. I thought what would happen if I flipped all the lines from top to bottom, blew it out into prose and changed every word. And what happened is I wrote my own poem, but it's still quite distinctly haunted by this poem Accelerando, which just means an increase in musical tempo, by Jose Hierro. And this one is called Reversing the Tempo. I could hear her gently lift the needle off the record, prime souvenirs coming to a stop. Now the silence in the house, to which we'd grown so accustomed, was starting to solo. Rain, waves, cutlery crisscrossing in dishwater, clattering up against the sides of the sink. The children would be arriving by boat the next day. I would be careful not to refer to them as kiddo or sweetie, careful not to bring up divorces, make outdated diagnoses of their mental health, justify past choices that had hurt them, open up wounds that had maybe healed. The rain stopped. I could hear the doors of their bedrooms, even though they were firmly closed. My wife appeared at the end of the bed, removing her earrings. Her face, like the sea, was out of control with excitement. I kissed her. The apple tree grew in the yard. The rain barrel spilled from the open top. The tide pulled against the rocks. I was feeling none of the anger I had carried for the last year and a half. I placed the word why on my table with my glasses and my paperback. I turned off the bedside light. None of them let me carry their suitcases upstairs. They brought toys, they brought flowers, they brought the smell of the sea, they brought a cello case. One of the grandkids plays cello. They ascended the staircase, which creaked like the stairs of a church. It had been more than 500 days, endless waves, and miles by sea. The rain held off. The first meal was finished. The stars had brushed their teeth. Ghosts, no doubt waiting to reform, had broken apart. I kissed their faces, the dirty dishes. I kissed lampshades around the house. My feet hurt, though we hadn't gone anywhere. Needle a hull shadow over the start. Okay, this next one, this book is sort of approaches the eye just music from different angles. I like sad music. I'm learning how to play guitar. One of the kinds of music I was thinking about is when one of your favorite artists goes silent for a long time and you're wondering what they're doing. And I thought maybe that kind of speculation could be a kind of music. Like, you know, what's Frank Ocean up to? Who knows? Could be good, could be bad, could be, anyway. So this one's called Hermetic Fabric, and it just kind of has an anonymous kind of musician. As the idea of taking a beat expanded, diehards let loose to obsessing. First thoughts were hard drugs or a sudden religious conversion. But then considering that single blissful online picture from an emu farm, location undisclosed, above their defense of something dubbed the sonic proletariat, it almost seemed possible to predict the dawn of a new album's thematic directions. The newborn twins were unexpected. More expected, the experimental label, whose 6-month existence added maybe 3 new bands to the lexicon, 3 brief diversions the ears could hold. When the coffee shop, dispensary, and the polyethylene district opened, we thought maybe a guitar in the corner and a room of goodwill might unlock what was never really present in their dry autobiographical novel, set as it was mostly in childhood, all descriptions of full moon, stamp books, the wind's percussion on the rickety outhouse door. Too many of us contributed the cost of a pint to a doomed from the outset fringe campaign, even after they abandoned what was known for a while as the Abandoned Cannery Project, a place of perfect acoustics for the refusal of something. But the refusal of what? A Nordic word, perhaps. Something trendy to look up if for as soon as we ever wake from this long, dreamy nap. And that poem, I didn't have a title for that poem for a long time. And I was like, I got a Nordic word. I wonder, I can't remember which languages it's actually, if it was like Norwegian or Finnish. I wonder what Abandoned Cannery Project is in Norwegian, we'll just say for the purposes of being here right now. And it was like something like Hermetic Fabrica or something like that. And I was like, make it, anglicize it. And I'm like, all right, that's good. So I live for that kind of stuff. That might not be interesting to any of you, but it was very exciting to me. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. I want to thank Planet Earth. I want to thank Laurence. I want to thank all of you who came up here, the brave people, especially for the first time. I'm not finishing now. I'm just doing the thanking so I get it out of the way. But I also want to thank Arts New Brunswick as well, who helped get me out here, and my family and friends that are here, some I haven't seen in a long time, and I really appreciate it. So let's see. So yeah, this one's called Subito, which just kind of means suddenly. A compact sedan full of teenagers overtakes his 18-wheeler on the right. 3,000 pounds of Greek yogurt bound for Des Moines remain chilled in the back. Clean cabin, smell of that rear view air freshener vanilla that does not last. Thus far, not an unusual drive. 2 year-long tours overseas, 12 more here at home with a latent rage, an unpaid instrument of war. Vetch and ditches, signs promising Wi-Fi and clean rooms. The dashboard dancer broke down in tears mid-dance under the vanilla spruce. Bodies and other truths that blaring his horn at the road would never change, nor would the Stones on repeat, wild horses screaming at him from that faraway place in the dash. I like basketball a lot, and thinking about kind of maybe musical intelligence or sound, or the way that this is a bit of a humble brag here, and I'm kind of paraphrasing the first 4 lines of the poem, but once I was driving for a layup, I could hear everybody running behind me, and I could pick out the footsteps of my best friend who was running behind me. And so I threw the ball over to where he was going to be, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm long. My knees hurt too much to play basketball now, but I always wanted to get that into a poem somewhere. And I did finally. It only took like 20 years. But so I'm going to read that one now, and it's just called, Luka Doncic, who's one of my favorite basketball players. Sometimes I remember being able to distinguish my best friend's footsteps from the defense's oncoming footsteps, and throwing the ball over my shoulder, blind, the game develops. I oscillate between extremes of total isolation and hyperconnection. Sometimes I run through the forest listening to the forest. Sometimes my old friends text me links to songs with those drums we like. I go to the forest, I go to the clearing. Sometimes the line, the polyglot choreography of urban sidewalks runs through my mind. Sometimes I find a little space in the forest where light falls through leaves. I think God or Luka Doncic, pass the ball. Sometimes the oncoming footsteps reach me. I'm devoured by foxes. I'm in the clearing thinking I'm too young to be so tired. Sometimes a bird appears out of the corner of something for which I don't have words, and so I say my eyes. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna read one more here. This is called C over G. I thought, because I'm just learning guitar, that it was called CG till it was typeset, but no. I like the title C over G better. It's written the same, which is fine, but I was a little worried about, because I say C over G at one point in the poem, if it would scan correctly, and it did. Yeah, not correctly, that's not the word, but it was fine. And yeah, I think that's it. C over G. I was butchering a Big Thief song on a green ukulele. Their song about the infinite nature of potatoes. It was a toy ukulele, too small for my hands. But I packed it around the house for a couple of years, light as a leaf and easy to learn. I love Big Thief, particularly their lead singer, Adrienne Lenker. You can hear late diner coffees with John Prine in her voice, the blades of Joni Mitchell's ice skates. Once a journalist asked Adrienne what records she grew up listening to as a child, and she answered, I was listening to my parents. I was listening to Bugs and the furniture in our house. You can hear this listening in her voice. Could be what allows her to write such beautiful songs about potatoes. When I moved on from the green ukulele to guitar, I learned more Big Thief songs. Adrienne loves using this C over G chord in the slow stuff as well as the howlers. Her songs are often just 3 chords, generous with space for beginners like me to feel around notes for their edges. I still hide my voice when I play guitar, but with her songs I dig inward, sing me-seeming vocals. Have you ever seen potatoes growing in a field? Above ground, they make these gorgeous flowers. Have you ever taken a family trip to Potato World? We shot potato guns, studied a wall chart of the common potato deformations, ate heaping plates of fries. Although I far prefer Big Thief, I let the kids listen to Taylor Swift on the way back home. I wasn't really listening to Taylor Swift. I was listening to the kids in the back seat singing what they love to sing. The difference has nothing to do with taste. Later that fall, I was practicing Big Thief's Change in the kitchen when my visiting mother surprised me, knew the words, started singing along. So much of what I love are things that would have mortified me once. I try to describe them to my mother by letting her sing in my kitchen without interruption. I tried to describe them in a plain spoken poem, a middle-aged amateur inventing a journalist to give an interview nobody asked for. I was listening to my parents. I was listening to the potatoes in the fields, their powdery scab, silver scurf, verticillium wilt, and late blight. The flowers, the space around the chords, to my mother and I singing in the same field, the secret of the quiet night. Thanks all for coming. I appreciate it.